Okay, we are back. RDs versus BS. Emily and Marie here to dive a little bit more into alkaline water. We had our podcast episode that was all about the alkaline diet and the claims and the science and all of that. But as always, we like getting a little bit more into the weeds about a few things. So for this one, we chose alkaline water. And you can always refer back to our podcast episode. But here we're just going to start off by Marie explaining a little bit of, pH again, just a brief overview. And then we're going to get into alkaline water. It doesn't do anything, what people say it does, and whether or not you should buy it. So Marie, take it away.
All right, yeah, so I went over pH a little bit on our podcast. So essentially the pH scale goes from 0 to 14, with 7 being neutral, anything below 7 being acidic, and anything above 7 being alkaline, or another word for that is basic. So typically when we're talking about alkaline water, we're talking about water that has a pH that's above 7. Normal neutral water is at exact 7. So water just as itself is completely neutral, and then anything that would be under 7 would be acidic. So when you see a high pH water or an alkaline water, and then usually they'll give the pH on there somewhere on the bottle, so it might say like alkaline water 9.4 pH. Essentially what that means is it's a water that has been manipulated in some way to have a higher pH than the natural 7 or the neutral 7. Water that comes from nature sometimes, and a lot of times, is naturally alkaline. So sometimes if you're just picking up a bottle of spring water, it might be a little bit alkaline already, just naturally. If you're out camping and you're just drinking straight out of a creek or whatever, it's probably going to just be naturally alkaline. So sometimes manufacturers, especially if you're thinking of like a Fuji water, or is it Fuji or Fiji? I think of Fuji apples.
Fuji apple, Fiji water.
Yeah.
We all know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like a Fiji water or something like that might naturally just be a little bit alkaline because of the way that they process it and the way that they are taking just natural spring water. Another way that you can alkalize it is if you're taking a neutral water and you are adding some minerals to it. So this could be something like a mineral water. This could be something like an electrolyte water. What most of these companies do that are specifically promoting a high pH water is they are putting it through a process called ionization. So water is just a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen. And if you take out some of those hydrogen ions, what you're left with is a water that is more alkaline. It has a higher pH. So that's what that process is of ionization, is essentially they're taking water, they're taking some of the hydrogen out, and what you're left with is a higher pH water. It's still water, it's just water that's had some of its hydrogen ions removed. So there are a ton of claims around alkaline water specifically. And Emily, do you want to get into what some people claim that this water can do?
I do, because, there's got to be some pretty great claims for all these companies to go through all this trouble to alkalize these waters, right? So what are these claims? So the first is anti-aging. Who doesn't want that? Colon cleansing properties, which this cracks us up because it's basically a nice way to say explosive diarrhea. Like colon cleansing. What even is that? Okay, alkaline water for immune system support, for hydration with your skin health, detoxifying properties. It can even, they claim, cause weight loss and cancer resistance. So these claims are all over the place. Anything from, it'll make you less likely to get cancer, to you can lose weight, to it'll detoxify you. All right, so all these great claims. So let's really get into all of them and say, is there anything here? Has science shown that any of this is true? Because, as dietitians, we always go back to the science. So Marie, what's the truth? What is there anything to these claims that would make us want to really buy this alkaline water?
Yeah, so short answer is no. There's no truth.
Sorry.
Yeah, all right. Episode over. Thanks for joining us.
And that's the thing is, like, if this were true, every dietitian would be saying, go buy alkaline water. Everyone go get it, because, you know, we want people to be healthy. We would love it if all these claims could come true just from buying a certain water. So, you know, I say this all the time, but a lot of times if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. So let's get into why. I mean, we have the answer no, pretty much no. These aren't very solid claims, but why? So Marie, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, all right. So first of all, if you listen to our podcast episode, which was about the alkaline diet, we talked a lot about how these claims come from the fact that proponents of this diet say that alkaline foods and waters can change your blood pH. And we get a lot more into why in the podcast, but essentially that cannot happen from diet. And that's been proven time and time again in studies that basically show that your diet cannot impact the pH of your blood, because your blood pH is really tightly controlled by your kidney and your lungs. And if your blood pH gets out of whack, it's super serious and you're hospitalized pretty much immediately, and you can die if that isn't being controlled. So first of all, kind of hilarious that people even want to change the pH of their blood to begin with, because it's already at the spot that it needs to be alive. But what you're eating and what you're drinking can't really have an impact on that. And that, again, that's been proven. And we link in our website all of the studies that we've gone through that support this. And these are conclusions of what are called meta-analyses and systematic reviews. So this isn't just one study showing this. This is looking at all of the studies that have looked into alkaline water and the alkaline diet. The overall conclusion of all of them is that it has no effect on these things. So much more powerful than just one singular study showing things. According to the Mayo Clinic, their conclusion on alkaline water is there is no scientific evidence that fully verifies the claims made by the supporters of alkaline water. And again, they're basing this off of all of the evidence within the scientific community that shows that there's really nothing to this.
Right.
I do quickly want to get into one thing that we found being potentially a positive thing with alkaline water, but why even that's not super significant. So we did find a 2012 study that showed that an 8.8 pH alkaline water was helpful in reducing acid reflux by basically neutralizing the acid that's in your stomach. So sounds promising with someone that has acid reflux, you know, like maybe just drink this alkaline water and that can be helpful. Well, when you look into the actual study, the first kind of red flag is that this wasn't a study that was done in humans or in any living being or organism. It was done what's called in vitro, which means in a test tube or in a petri dish. So essentially they were putting the pH water on an acidic solution and seeing that it neutralized, which isn't really helpful in the context of a human, because like we talked about in our podcast a lot, human beings are really complex biological systems. So just because something really specific happens in a petri dish doesn't necessarily mean it's going to transition to being true in the human body, which has all these other checks and balances to make sure that other systems are not going out of whack. So that's the first issue with it. Even still, if it had any sort of promising potential with acid reflux, it's actually not that surprising, because that's essentially what like a Pepto-Bismol is, which is what you take for acid reflux. It is a very alkaline solution that is neutralizing some of your stomach acid. So what this study did not do is compare the 8.8 pH water to something like a Pepto-Bismol to see which one was more effective. And so I would still never recommend someone take a alkaline water to help with a disease like gastric reflux over taking something like a Pepto-Bismol, which is studied in a clinical context and we know has an effect on humans and is helpful for gastric reflux.
And I get this. A lot of people want to go kind of the alternative route and maybe the more natural route. Like, hey, if I can drink this water instead of taking a medication, like maybe I'd be better off. But what you said is exactly true, is that, Pepto-Bismol has been studied. It's been around for a long time. There aren't bad side effects and we know that it works. So just because it's a medication, it doesn't mean that it's bad for you or unnatural. Yeah, I completely agree with you there, Marie. It's like, let's go for the stuff we know works and, get it taken care of instead of, maybe drinking this alkaline water that may or may not work. So, for all of those claims, basically not enough science behind it to warrant going out and buying alkaline water. Yet, we still see so many different companies who sell this alkaline water. Pretty much every big water company has their own form of water that's an alkaline water. So why is this? Because it's a trend. And, not everyone knows that things like this, like the alkaline diet, doesn't have any science to back it up, because they see people like Tom Brady who's promoting it and he's so good at sports and he's so healthy, so it must be true. So that's why, we're seeing like I said, pretty much everyone has their own alkaline water. So
I think that it's got to be hard to be in the water industry because water is just water, and it's like they always talk about, I was a business major in undergrad, so took my basic marketing classes, and you always have to evolve and have a new product, and you can't just sell water forever because you've got to stay with the competition. So of course water companies are going to hop on any trend that comes up. I'm sure keto water is going to start popping up. It probably already does,
I'm sure it
paleo water.
Yeah, Whole30 certified.
Exactly.
It's literally water. There's nothing in it, so it can be certified by anyone.
Yeah, so that's why companies are hopping on this trend, because people buy it. They follow the market. They don't follow the science, and it is what it is. They're trying to make money. Can't blame them for that. But, we kind of wanted to go into how it compares to tap water because, we always want to give alternatives because we don't want to just say, oh, this is BS. Wait, have we stamped this with BS? We
haven't stamped it, but I think we should. And I don't think this will come as a surprise to anybody. I'm giving it the stamp. I mean, no, it's not going to hurt you, but you're paying extra for literally nothing. You're not getting any benefit from it. So BS stamp for me. It's just a marketing tactic, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. So since we have now officially BS stamped it, sorry for jumping the gun on that one a little bit.
Yeah. I just assumed.
So, what would be our recommendation? Just tap water. And again, we live in the United States, so we're very lucky to have clean drinking water pretty much readily available. If that's not the case for you, we would recommend just a bottled water, a bottle, just regular spring, mineral, none of those things. It doesn't really matter. Again, that speaks more to the source of the original water. That doesn't matter, just as long as it's a clean drinking water. That's what we recommend, but don't pay extra for the pH water, is essentially what we're saying. If you are someone that lives in an area where you have clean drinking water coming out of your tap, we want to kind of talk about how the pH water compares to tap water. So in the US, the EPA has requirements of what the pH needs to stay in between. So that range is 6.5 to 9. So like I said, a lot of waters and tap waters are already naturally a little bit alkaline just because of the minerals that are in it or that we put into it. So for example, we always add fluoride to our drinking water because it's good for our teeth. It's hard to find in a lot of other sources. So that would be something that if you were, that's a mineral that you're adding that is probably changing the pH of the water. Overall tap water tends to be pretty close to neutral. It has to stay within that range, but it's really just all the same. And it's funny because, people are so concerned about the pH and having it be alkaline. And honestly, most water is already slightly alkaline anyways if it's coming from a natural source. Overall, just if you have clean drinking water, drink straight from the tap. If you don't, drink just regular bottled water that isn't being marketed to you as an alkaline water, because there's no benefit for that and you're just wasting your money.
Yeah, I think one other thing that sometimes these alkaline waters say is that it's the ultimate hydration. Like it's going to hydrate you way more than just regular water. And that's just not the case. I mean, some of these waters do add in electrolytes, which, the basic ones are sodium, potassium, chloride. But it's not enough, and it's not going to really hydrate you any more than this tap water. So, Marie, you're exactly right. Alternatives, like you need water to be hydrated. It's important to drink enough. So, keep it simple. Drink tap water. If you don't like the taste, get a Brita filter, filter it out, but it's hydrating you just as well as any of these other alkaline waters would.
All right, so I think we have sufficiently debunked alkaline water. Sorry to anybody whose worldviews were shattered by this video, but we're here to just kind of speak to what the science is telling us. Thanks for tuning in. You can see a link to our podcast, to our website, to our Instagram, all of that below. Be sure to look out for our next podcast episode and our next videos that are going to be associated with that episode.
Yep, and everyone stay healthy out there. Thanks for tuning in and stay away from the BS.